Welcome back to Admiral Enright's Carnival Intoxica. We are making Sazeracs today. I know you knew this day was coming. If you know me, you know this is my favorite cocktail. This really epitomizes everything about cocktails to me. There's an attention to detail that has to happen. You're using some of my favorite spirits, rye whiskey, absinthe, the Peychaud's bitters. This just has everything all encapsulated in one glass, and it's easy to fuck up, but if you pay attention and you take your time with it, you pay attention to every detail, it's really easy to make as well. What you're going to need at home, you're going to need Peychaud's bitters, you're going to need absinthe, you're going to need Demerara sugar cubes, and you're going to need rye whiskey. I think that's it. Aside from your tools, your jiggers, your mixing glasses, that's pretty much, those are the components. And for that small amount of components, you're coming up with a real complex drink, the Toasted New Orleans. So I'm going to show you how to do this at home, and if you follow along and you pay attention closely, you're going to be making Sazeracs at home any day. So let's get into it. The first thing you always want to do when you do a Sazerac is you want to make sure you have a seasoned glass. For me, I prefer to do this method of seasoning the glass, which is do about 3 to 4 ice cubes in the glass to start off with. You're going to take your absinthe and you're going to pour it right over the cubes, somewhere between a 1/4 ounce and a 1/2 ounce. It's a little bit wasteful. You'll see a lot of people doing things like misting it or doing little drops on the side. And you know, in a high volume bar, yeah, that's what you're going to want to do, because you don't want to be so wasteful with your absinthe. But if you're doing this at home, or if you're in a bar that gets a Sazerac a week, I do recommend this method where you're actually pouring it over the ice cubes. What this does is the ice and the water will expand the molecules of the absinthe, and it'll stick to the sides of the glass. When water is added to absinthe, like it does with Sambuca, it gets really cloudy, and you'll see right there already, it's got this real cloudy look to it. That's called the louche. The louche happens when water's added to absinthe. The molecules expand, and it makes it more difficult to actually see through a clear spirit. So that's what's going on in this glass right here. When those molecules expand, they also attach themselves easier to the sides of the glass. So that's why I do it this way. And I've always found that this just makes a better Sazerac when you do the absinthe poured over the ice in the absinthe glass. We call it seasoning the glass. So we're going to get into the cocktail itself. We have Demerara sugar cubes here. I'm going to put one of those in our mixing glass. If you do not have a mixing glass at home, you can always use a pint glass. When I started cocktailing at Embry, which was really Pittsburgh's very first craft cocktail bar, we didn't have mixing glasses. We had pint glasses, and they worked great. And that's how I learned. Once I learned on the pint glasses, moving into something like a mixing glass like this was like taking the training wheels off, and you're riding all over the countryside. So you get your sugar cube there, 1 Demerara sugar cube. And now we're going to add our bitters. This is Peychaud's bitters. This is from New Orleans. You're going to see this has a very red tint to it. I don't know if you can see that. Some cherry notes to it, some anisette notes in there as well. We're going to do 6 dashes of this. That might seem like a lot, but it's really important. That is really the heart and soul of this cocktail, is the Peychaud's bitters and the absinthe. Rye whiskey, there's a lot of cocktails with rye whiskey, but there's not a lot that are combining all 3 of these ingredients together. So, a dash. Let's talk about that for a second. A lot of people, when they start cocktailing, when they do it at home, they tend to, hold back a little bit on how much bitters they put in a drink. It's really not necessary. Bitters are kind of the pepper of the cocktail world. Where sugar is kind of the salt, bitters is kind of the pepper. These are the seasonings that you're using to make cocktails. So a real dash is, take that bottle, put it between your two fingers, and that's one dash. Alright? So if I was doing this with this Angostura bitters here, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. The top of every one of these bottles has a dasher top. So that is going to let the spirit come out and the air goes in. That's what creates a dash for you. So don't be afraid of bitters. Bitters are your friend. If you're really going to get serious about cocktails, you got to get serious about bitters. So we're going to do a picture of those bitters. We're going to do 6 dashes, as I said. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, something a lot of people don't know as well is that sugar will not melt in alcohol as quickly as it will in water. So you've got your bitters, which is very high in alcohol, typically, very potent. That's with the sugar cube. That sugar cube is not going to dissolve as quickly. So I'm just going to do just a dash of water. This water is where sugar melts, and so you want a little bit of water. And honestly, it's just that, just a couple drops of that in there. And then we're going to use our muddler, and we're going to muddle the sugar cube. And what we're going to do, we're going to create like this kind of paste. It's a sugar paste paste on the bottom of the glass. We call it a slurry. You want to make sure that the sugar is really ground in there and really melted. There's nothing wrong with having a couple cubes of sugar, a little bit of sand in the glass when you have your final cocktail. But if you can avoid it, do your best to do that. Alright, so that's nice and muddled. Next we're going to do our rye whiskey. I absolutely love Rittenhouse rye whiskey, and I think you can do this cocktail with just straight Rittenhouse, no problem. You'll be quite happy with that. This is 100 proof, however. So when I'm doing this cocktail for the restaurants or bars that I work at, I like to cut it a little bit. I don't want to have this full 100 proof bourbon or rye whiskey in my drink. That's a real good way to make sure that your guests have one cocktail and are out the door, because any more than that, they shouldn't be driving, which, really none of us should be this day and age. However, what I like to do is just do a little bit of a mix of this. So I've got my Woodford Reserve rye here. This is 90 proof, so it's going to cut the proof a little bit. I'm going to do 1.5 ounces of my Woodford Reserve rye. You can do Woodford Reserve. Angel's Envy is beautiful. If you've never had an Angel's Envy Sazerac, you're really missing out. There's actually also Sazerac rye, which, in a perfect circumstance, I would use that, 100% of that in my cocktail. At the restaurant that I work at, Spork, we do 1.5 ounces of Old Overholt and 1/2 ounce of Rittenhouse rye. Old Overholt's at about 80 proof, and then you throw in the 100 proof Rittenhouse rye. That gives it a little bit of backbone, a little bit of structure, and makes a great Sazerac. So, for our intents and purposes here, we are going to use Woodford. I'm going to do 1.5 ounces of Woodford. So I have here in front of me a Japanese jigger. This is how we measure our ounces in the bars. It's really important to measure your cocktail ingredients. You do not want to just free pour until you're a professional. There's a lot of professionals out there and professional bars that can free pour. But if you're doing this at home, I really highly recommend that you use a jigger or some kind of measuring tool. So what I've got in here is this Japanese jigger has these little lines inside of it, and it shows me where an ounce and a half is. So I'm going to, got that filled up to an ounce and a half, and now I'm going to top it off to get to a full 2 ounces with my Rittenhouse. And I want a little bit of a meniscus at the top of the jigger. That is the surface tension of the liquid, is your meniscus. That lets you know that you've gotten and you've reached a full 2 ounces on your pour. So I've got all my ingredients in here. You notice I didn't put any ice in this glass. Same thing with the shaker. Don't put ice into your shakers or your mixers until you are ready to start stirring or shaking. If ice goes in too early, the other ingredients are going to melt that ice a lot faster, and you're going to get a lot more dilution than you actually want in your drink. So moving on, we're going to actually add our ice to this one. And you want to give it a good amount of ice. That might be too much, but we'll see how this goes. And I'm going to give this a nice long stir. The Sazerac is a cocktail that doesn't have any ice in it. It's basically served neat or up in this Sazerac glass. So you want to make sure that you're getting a fantastic chill, because you want this thing to stay cold for quite some time. And you also want to get some good dilution, because right now what you have in this glass is just all straight booze. And a cocktail is not booze. A cocktail is a nice, balanced drink that has all these different aspects to it that create the complete composite pictures here. So water is a very important part of this picture. So you do want some melting, you do want some dilution, and you do want some chill. And so that is what I'm doing. I'm going to chill this real good for you. The ability to judge when a drink is done and when the dilution is done really comes from experience and time. The more time you spend making drinks, the more you'll really... Okay, once you've had your drink stirred, now we're going to get rid of the absinthe that we've been seasoning this glass with. So you can see it's nice lucian in there. We just want to get a little bit on the walls, and then we're just going to dump all that ice with the absinthe in. Take our glass. Don't have to do this at home if you don't want to. Throw it, get it all nice and lined on the inside of that glass. Alright, so we're going to pour this beautiful drink into our pre-seasoned glass. And that looks gorgeous. Got this nice red color from the Peychaud's bitters. Nice, and it's diluted, and it's cold. Alright, final part of this cocktail, however, is, and a very important part, the lemon peel. Lemon is this is gonna add all the aromatics. It's gonna change the entire flavor of this cocktail. I'm gonna squeeze out a little bit of oil over the top. Now you'll notice I'm not doing it right into the glass. I'm doing it over off on the side. And the reason for this is I want the more floral, fragrant oils to these are the lighter oils. They're going to go out over the glass and come down over the top. The heavier, more bitter oils are going to fall a little bit short. So we're going to do this right about out here. Squeeze that oil out. And then we're going to rub the rest of the bitter oils off on the side of the glass. This is called perfuming the glass. And that lemon peel goes in the glass. You don't have to put the lemon peel in the glass if you don't want to. it's tradition, so I leave it in. A lot of times when I'm making cocktails, I'll just discard that lemon peel, but for Sazerac, Sazerac's all about tradition, and so I always put that in there. That is a good looking drink right there. That's perfect. The balance of the water diluting makes this a real easy drinking, easy sipping drink. And you're getting all those flavors. The absinthe is in there, the bitters, the rye obviously is really strong in there, but it's not overpowering. It's really well balanced and mellowed out by the long stir that I did there. So that's it. Pay attention to every step you're doing here. Understand why you're doing it, and you're going to come up with a great Sazerac as this one is. I would not be ashamed to serve that in a New Orleans bar. That's a good drink. Hope to see you again soon behind the bar. Have a great night.